friends in retail and allied industries. This is Raf Layosa, founder and CEO of Retail Gate Technologies and managing director of Innovation One Digital Marketing. And welcome to yet another episode of the country's premier podcast for retail, Let's Talk Retail. Now, time has flown by real fast. I mean, can you believe it? This is actually the third episode of our fourth season. And we continue to really make this impact and a difference in the whole gamut of the industry. And to our listeners who have been with us since day one, let me take this opportunity to say thank you. Your support means a lot to us, and we hope that we are able to provide you inspiration, motivation, and actionable strategies that you can use to take up a notch your respective businesses. Now, to further help you achieve your respective business goals, our episode today will be tackling sustainability. Now, we all know that it is more than just a buzzword, so we are here to expound what sustainability really is about and its impact moving forward and how we can help you achieve your sustainability goals. Now, to guide us, allow me to introduce to you our very instrumental guest. He is a very passionate individual. His early career began in sports and music, and his curiosity for public speaking led to a stint in business development, which first brought him to Southeast Asia back in 2013. Within a matter of days after landing in the Philippines, Joseph fell in love with the energy, culture, and people, and now he calls the Philippines his home. He is most driven when innovation and technology create real impact. Prior to Humble, he was the managing director of Penn Brothers for 5 years, another impactful local startup building remote teams for businesses all over the world. Together with his co-founder Nina, they then built Humble in 2021, and eventually he stepped down from his role at Penn Brothers to lead Humble. So without further ado, please welcome on screen the CEO of Humble Sustainability, Josef Werker. Hey, Joseph.
Hey, Raf, thank you so much. What a wonderful welcome. I don't think I need to say anything else. I think you've done the part. Thanks for having me.
I mean, that's a very interesting history you got there. I mean, from really starting your career in sports and music and then shifting towards more business with Penn Brothers and now with Humble Sustainability. Maybe you could tell us more about that. I mean, that's a very dynamic and diverse journey that you went through. What was it like for you? What really inspired those shifts and what really drove you along the way, Joseph?
I love that. So you say dynamic, which just sounds very beautiful. For me, it's just weird. I started out, I was a classical musician and a swimmer, believe it or not. So I made a living and school and everything was all playing the piano, conducting choirs and rushing up and down a swimming pool at ridiculous speeds. It was a very kind of bizarre shift to business in general. I met this guy who was a public speaker on behalf of all these different charities, and I fell in love with the way that you can use language and communication to really create proper impact. And that was my first kind of glance into that whole world. So decided to change course, decided to become a public speaker, speak on behalf of different organizations here and there. And long story short, I eventually got this really exciting role in Southeast Asia, building documentaries for rising economies. So I kicked off in KL in Malaysia, which was great. It was all about Vision 2020. But then along came the Philippines, and it was just magic. I remember, honestly, and I'm not exaggerating, I was in a taxi from the airport going towards where I was going to stay and going along EDSA, which imagine 8 years ago took about 2.5 hours anyway.
And we're back to that today.
Not quite as bad, but yeah, we're close. And this guy's like, just his outlook on life was just stunning. And already then I felt like there was something about the Philippines and Filipino values and culture and sense of humor that I wanted to understand more. So after a couple of months of living here, decided to really make it home and cement my life here. So as you said, one of the first sort of meaningful roles was with Penn Brothers. So a fantastic business, building remote teams for startups. And I was there for 5 years and very, very lucky to have learned a lot from my co-founders and everybody else. You know, when I started, we had sort of 10 people in the team. And when I left just last year, we had sort of 200 people in the team. It was really an amazing experience to see a company go from that size to that size. So I was very lucky that they taught me a lot. And I was also very lucky that my co-founders always knew that I might have that itch to really go and build something also extremely impactful of my own. And that's where Humble comes along. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about Humble in this session, but in 2 minutes, that's my life story. I hope I haven't already bored all of the listeners immediately.
Of course not. Of course not, Joseph. I mean, I love that. While you were saying that, I was really thinking, as I said, it's a very dynamic journey you had, but you did say it is weird, but I'd rather say it's dynamic. And I was really thinking, what's the one thing that's really tying that together? You said it yourself. It's the impact that you're able to create, right? So yeah. Maybe you could tell us more. I mean, I love that. That's really inspiring. But what is it about that? Where is that coming from? That driving force for you to create that impact? I mean, when we think of impact, what is real impact for you, or what is meaningful impact even that is really important to you in your journey so far?
I love that question. So look, I think it's almost annoying that this term social impact is used as a buzzword these days, such as so many different things. But impact for me is, how can you make a difference in something which needs a solution that is in an awful lot of pain in so many different ways? So this could be people's lives. This could be an environment that is being broken by the day. It could be a lot of different things, but I think really creating proper impact is where you look at all of the different social causes and you just dedicate your life, or even an aspect to it, to doing something that helps others or something that needs that help. So I think impact is extremely broad. And actually, this is really the conversation me and my co-founder had 6 years ago when we met. And it was that we want to change people's lives. We want to do something positive. And it sounds cliche, but it was so true. But we just didn't know how, right? So we're not actually sustainability scientists or environmental, like we're not that knowledgeable about it. We didn't study it in university. We were just extremely passionate about that as one of the key problems, and thought, how can we go about doing something about it? So yeah, I mean, this has always been a big driver for me. I think it's also family oriented. It's kind of how you were brought up a little bit. And my mother is incredible. She's an activist. She's out protesting with face paint on, and she's just amazing. And she's nearly 70 years old, bless her. So you find these inspiration from different places. And I think also when you travel a little bit, that you get exposed to different things and your mind broadens. I mean, the UK, of course, the UK has their problems, but when you grow up in a first world country like the UK, and then you get to see real firsthand places like Africa, places like India, places like different areas of the Philippines, and you see that there are so many problems that deserve that level of help, and inequality across the globe is just ludicrous that we allowed it to get to this place. So yeah, for me, impact is about trying to level out the playing field a little bit and bringing some, solutions to those issues that need it the most.
I love that. I mean, that is that is absolutely very inspiring, because it's not every day that you get someone that is truly, genuinely passionate about creating that meaningful change that will really create that impact or change lives of people, right? So that really begs the question now for me: what led you to that inspiration for Humble Sustainability? And a side question to that also, I'm very curious. I'd really love to hear this from you too. Why the Philippines? I mean, clearly, I'm sure you've been to other countries as well. What's in it in the Philippines that that made you fall in love with the country, and now that also inspired humble sustainability and your journey and where you are right now?
Okay, love it. So I'll start with the Philippines. We'll go in like chronological order. So Philippines, again, 8-9 years ago or so, I landed here by not my choice, right? I was sent here for a project, and boy, am I glad that that happened. And as I said, like just from that early moment, I think it, like the first thing and the only thing that was so important at the beginning was the people that you meet. And I think Filipinos have something which, I don't know, it's always inspired me so much, like this unbelievable humility, which is a value that I really, really believe in. This just a wonderful sense of humor, this incredible loyalty, like these qualities which not only make game-changing teams, and therefore you can build something fantastic from a business point of view, but also just make wonderful people in a place that I want to live, right? And business is important, but you know, why do we do business? One, impact, yes, some people to make a living, of course, but at the end of the day, how you feel in your own life is also really important. And so for me, being in the Philippines just made me happy, Raf. Like I was just really happy here. So that's really why. And of course, when you're in a place that has lots of problems, that means there's lots of area for, you know, bringing solutions. And for me, something about, you know, living in London, which is one of my favorite cities in the world, it's like, how much impact can I really have, right? Like, how much like innovation do they actually need in comparison to other places that I think really needs it? So the Philippines was very easy. And the answer to that question is really the people, the values, the culture, the sense of humor. And then when it comes to the inspiration behind Humble, so when Nina and I met, as I said, we had this joint passion for doing something impactful, but we just didn't know what it was. And I think the other thing was that we saw a lot of these different sort of social charities and things doing amazing things, but they were struggling necessarily to have impact on like a really massive level because they were sort of a social enterprise, and they're restrained by having to, you know, get people to donate money and get grants and things like that. So we kind of said to each other, like, what if we have this extremely impactful business that changes lives or does something important, while at the same time being this hyper growth startup that's extremely interesting to investors, just like some of the other incredible startups you see today. So if we collide those two worlds, we could do something really special. And so we went on our separate journeys of leading different companies. We couldn't figure out the idea back then. And then a light bulb moment did happen, not to me, but to my creative better half, which is Nina. And she said, why don't we create this circular solution for children's clothing? So a lot of her friends were mums at that point, and any parents who are listening, which I'm sure is a lot of you, will know that your children grow out of a piece of clothing within about 6 minutes of fitting into it. So where does that clothing go? If you have a younger sister or a younger brother, then fantastic. But if you don't, that will often end up just getting thrown away. So what if there's this kind of solution where we were able to exchange that and bring these clothing to other people who could grow into it? And I loved that concept of this kind of circular economy thing that solved a real problem that people actually face. And so we just expanded it. We said, what about every type of item? Why don't we go and take their electronics and their plastics and everything else, and we find a way to bring that all back into circularity? And that was the first version of Humble, and that was how it was really born. The other stuff kind of came later when it comes to e-commerce returns and things, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But the inspiration behind it was really that. It was, how can we solve a problem that people face so they care about it? And then at the same time, that byproduct really positively impacts the planet.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting and very inspiring story of that light bulb moment, right? I love how it's very real, right? I mean, every family with a kid would have already experienced that. No? So given that story, and that gives us a little bit of an idea, but maybe you could tell us more and give us a clear idea. what's Humble all about now? What's the business model like? How do you create that circular economy for your customers and of course your partners as well?
Sure. Okay, so in a nutshell, so Humble, we are a circular economy startup, and what we do is we make returns and excess inventory, slow-moving items, the hero. So the numbers are ridiculous. 2 billion tons of e-com returns ended up in the landfill last year. It's ridiculous. Like billions upon billions of dollars are wasted due to slow-moving inventory. Retail businesses needing to focus on today's modern line. What happens to all of my previous season's stuff? Of course, this is a big problem, and there's so much money wasted, and unbelievably, a lot of this stuff ends up in the landfill. So what we do is we help these businesses earn high revenue from the inventory that might otherwise end up forgotten, or even worse, in a landfill, such as aging products, slow-moving stuff, excess inventory, returns. And then we either list the items on Thrift by Humble, which is our e-com platform, so people can go and buy really cool products at a really great price that's been sustainably sourced, or we sell that to our B2B network of recyclers, upcyclers, and resellers. So I guess we really wanted to give businesses the opportunity to be able to liquidate their items like sustainably and earn more revenue than any other way. And then we wanted to give individuals the opportunity to buy a really cool product that they may not otherwise be able to afford that has been sustainably sourced, allowing that purchase to have a positive impact on the planet. So that's what Humble is today in a nutshell.
I love that. I mean, the way you painted that really gives us a clear picture that it's not an economy that goes in just one direction, but we're also seeing different customer segments that you're really able to address. I mean, on one end, you did mention the businesses that can really liquidate those slow-moving assets, and on the other end are the customers who actually wouldn't otherwise get these types of items, and of course, they're able to source it in a more sustainable fashion, right? And I love that really, and that reminds me of course, we've been hearing a lot about this in recent years when we think of the Sustainable Development Goals, right? So when we think of that now, how do you see your work, the circular economy work and Thrift by Humble, really building up towards really fulfilling those sustainability goals, particularly, especially in the context of the Philippines? Yeah. Where do you see your place in that picture?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I could speak all day about this, and I think we impact a lot, but I'd probably summarize it. The three that we impact the most would be 11, 12, 13. So 11 is sustainable cities, communities. And the reason for that is that we are literally trying to prevent items ending up in the landfill. Like the Philippine landfills are just ridiculous, overflowing. It's extremely, extremely difficult. And the stats behind it, I won't bore you with it, but are quite shocking. So trying to really prevent that from getting any worse while empowering local recyclers and things like that. So that's 11. For 12, which is responsible consumption and production, this piece for me is really about educating consumers on really like what it is to be sustainable, living circular without having to force people to be extreme. I think one of the biggest problems I see these days is like we try to force sustainability down people's throats to such a degree that we're like, oh, if you're not 100% vegan and if you don't live in a house which has got zero electricity, then you don't deserve to call yourself sustainable. But that's ridiculous. If you alienate everyone like that, you're never going to be able to make any progress. So I think
that is true.
All steps are really important. And that's what we're trying to build, a community of people and businesses who care about circular living, regardless of how much experience they have in it, and really connect those people so they can learn more. And then third, so 13, climate action. And this is something which is quite close to my heart, which is having some measurable data to actually attach onto the impact that you create, right? We can say, oh, look, I'm doing this awesome campaign, which is helping people and helping the planet. Like I look amazing, I'm posting about it on LinkedIn. But unless there's like data to like back that up, sometimes it may not be as meaningful. So what we want to do is give people and companies the opportunity to monitor their live carbon footprint so they can really see like the actions that I'm doing, the things that I buy, the things that I sell, the way that I live. What data does that actually have? Like how's that actually impacts the planet? And I think that way, when you have that level of awareness, it becomes a lot more important. And you see like, well, I can make that difference. So that's another thing we're releasing. So we're coming up with a carbon footprint dashboard by the end of the year, which all of our clients and all of our people, buyers, sellers, etc., will be able to see that impact themselves in a dashboard.
I mean, I love that idea of a dashboard to track our carbon footprint. And I think that definitely would allow us to be more mindful of how we are actually contributing to the buildup of pollution across different forms. And having that mindfulness would allow us to really decrease or control that carbon footprint. I really love that, Joseph. But among those three things, what I'm really curious about, because you mentioned, of course, on the first one, in terms of sustainable community, sustainable ecosystems, that's already clear with the business model. On the third one that you mentioned, it's really about that tracking the carbon footprint and all. That's already clear on what you're about to release, and we're really excited about that. But in terms of building that awareness or understanding, I think that really involves a level of educating the market, right? So, and of course, there are different ways that we've seen how we can educate the market, increase awareness. But how do you guys do it at Humble? And how do you do it sustainable in a way that not only would it be a knowledge or an information, insight for the customers or for the market, but something that will really cause a paradigm shift or a change of a lifestyle for them in a more sustainable direction?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the billion-dollar question. I mean, it's no one's ever been, we haven't managed to do this yet, and it needs to happen. This is the decade where action has to happen, and more people need to join that boat. And again, look, we're not pretending that we came up with the answer and everyone listens to us. But what we're trying to do is show people that what they do actually does genuinely make a difference. Again, it sounds cliche, it sounds cheesy, but it's so true. And I think the issue that we have at the moment, by trying to say you need to be extreme or you don't take part, is such a problem. And we alienate so many people. And so I think if you get the 90% of the people that maybe don't actively try to live sustainably, and you just start with these small little steps and you make it okay to be a little bit sustainable at the beginning, live a little bit circular, make a few small changes, then that happens as a domino effect. They tell their friends, they do more things, they get excited by that, they see the impact that they're creating. So I think for us, it's really about coming up with, again, a set of solutions and content that people enjoy, people like, people want to engage with others like that, which isn't extreme at the beginning, and then allowing them to learn more about how they can do more and about the different things that do make an impact, what are the things that don't make an impact, and eventually that domino effect should occur. Again, I think it goes back to Humble's mission, to be honest, which is like, we've never pretended or claimed that we're going to change the world. All we want to do is to be able to create a platform where we inspire others to be able to do that themselves. So I think it's not just going to be on us. It's not just going to be on the government or all of the other wonderful climate startups or businesses out there. It's obviously going to be on the public and everybody else and all the businesses. But if there are more platforms that people can talk about it, then I think that really could be something exciting. So part of our vision for that community is, you go to LinkedIn if you want the social network for business. You go to Instagram if you want the social network for amazing photos. But we would love to see somewhere, whether it's Humble or not, a proper network where people go who are passionate about sustainability or want to learn about it. And that, I think, can create real change.
I love that. I mean, definitely, that is what would resonate with people that or have already that inkling at the very least, or are already very equally passionate about sustainability. But I'm curious, Joseph, how about those that are barely even remotely leaning towards having that same passion, right, for sustainability, where would you start, right? Especially for our business leaders that are watching us or listening to this episode, right? If the leader wants to really instill that same type of mindset and really perpetrate it within his organization, within his team, how do you do that organically and sustainably, where it's not forced, but rather it becomes something intrinsic within the organization?
Yeah, it's difficult, but I think it's the same as anything, whether it's sustainability or any new concept you want to introduce. It needs to happen through education and then allowing people to make their own decision, right? We can't stand here and say, look, you need to make sustainability your top priority when I'm also struggling with my bills and whether or not I'm going to be able to, pay rent this month, or whether I'm going to be able to eat properly, or whether I've got this personal problem. Like, that's just ridiculous for us to think that of people. So I think it's just about being able to constantly provide the right information and educate as much as we can, be transparent about what the issues are, and show people what are the potential solutions. And then we let them make their own minds up, right? And if people want a beautiful world to continue living in, then we need to act. But again, we cannot force people to believe something that we want them to believe. It just doesn't work like that. It's really about just providing the right amount of information in the right way so that people can then go and make a decision for themselves.
I love that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really about empowering and enabling our people, no matter what it is that they need to do. And in this case, of course, when we think of sustainability, not only do we inspire them, but we have to equip and enable them as well. Yeah. Now, let's speak to our retailers, right? Of course, our audience here, our business leaders in the retail industry are listening in or watching us today. What would be your message for them? How can they use your platform to really achieve their sustainability goals? And how can they continuously build that or be part of that circular ecosystem and add on to that impact that you're creating?
So look, I mean, again, speaking to the wonderful retailers, and I was lucky enough to meet several of you, right, at one of the brilliant events we had and in some of the discussions. But I think really, look, in retail, we have a difficult situation where we have so many items, we have products that we need to shift. And sometimes we need to focus on the most modern type of product that I have that I want to get out because my targets are based on that. It's the newest stuff, it's the nicest stuff, it's what's going to move and shift the most. My targets are probably focused around that new product line. And then all of the stuff which I haven't sold in the past, I've got a problem, right? And that's really where we come in. It's about the stuff which people sort of deprioritize and they need to find an alternate channel. So the way that we work with retailers is we say, okay, what are you struggling to shift? What is not your priority? What is in the past that for some reason might end up just gathering dust somewhere in a warehouse, or even worse, just being chucked away in a landfill? How can we take that inventory from you and we can bring that back into circularity and then help you earn high revenue from those items? So that's how we work with retailers. And I think it's really key, whether with Humble or not, to always constantly think of fast fashion, etc., and quick production is a massive issue. And it's because demand is really there, and the pressure to sell quickly and to keep coming up with new products is really intense. So there's so much stuff that just gets chucked away and sadly ends up in landfills or getting exported to other countries and so on and so forth. So finding solutions that prevents the waste ending up in landfills is imperative, whether that's through your employee sales, whether that's through warehouse sales, whether it's through other things, donating these things to different charities. These are all fantastic. Whether it's through working with Humble, of course, we would love to help the different businesses with that. But I think it's really important to look at that because it's a real problem. Again, you look at the amount of stuff that ended up in a landfill from the retail and e-com industries last year, and it's absolutely staggering. So we're not solving that problem yet, and I think we need to.
Absolutely, and that is really what we need to start working on, right? Because as the industry is growing, we're pretty much finding our way back to normal, and the economy is opening again, right? And definitely we need to start thinking about sustainability. And I love that, Joseph. Thank you for that very inspiring it was really quite an eye opener and a very refreshing perspective on how we can actually think of different creative and even innovative ways to really spearhead or pursue sustainability. I love that in terms of especially having that circular economy. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today, Joseph. Now, we are very thankful. Thank you so much again for joining us in this episode of Let's Talk Retail.
Thank you so much, Brad. I've loved it. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joseph. Now, are you guys looking for a fun and educational way to spend your afternoons? Watch the previous episodes through the PRA's YouTube channel or listen to it through Spotify. So again, thank you so much to all our listeners and our viewers for tuning in. Again, this is Raf Layosa, founder and CEO of RetailGate Technologies and Managing Director of Innovation One Digital Marketing. We'll see you again on the next episode of Let's Talk Retail. Until then, let's continue to build meaningful relationships. See you then.